we've been checking out the place of supply of services provided domestically within India. We've finished checking out the provisions relating to immovable property, where we concluded the place of supply would be location of the property except for when the location is outside India, and if it's split across states, then certain rules apply. Next, let's move on to the second category, event. There are two types of services relating to an event that are covered in the exception list of place of supply. Remember that we are talking about the exception list to the general rule of place of supply, which we've discussed in detail in the previous video. An event could be anything: a party event, a sporting event, cultural event, artistic, or even amusement park. So, an admission to an event is one category of service, and the second category is organizing an event. Admission, the services relating to admission would include booking tickets or promotional activities, mostly booking tickets in order to admit people into an event. The second category is pretty self-explanatory: organizing, taking the back-end work of creating that entire event, from scripts, from artistic play, from orchestra, from everything, organizing the event end to end. These are the two categories that are in the exception list. In the first case, for services relating to admission of an event, the place of supply would be the location where the event is held or the location of the amusement park. In the second case, that is, in relation to organizing an event, the place of supply would follow the hybrid rule. Remember the hybrid rule? Registered recipient and non-registered recipient. For organizing an event, in case the receiver of services is a registered person, then the place of supply would be the location of such recipient. But in case the receiver of service of an organizing event management company or anybody, if the receiver is non-registered recipient, then the place of supply would be the location where the event is held. Recall our discussion on services related to immovable property, boat or vessel. We said that the place of service in that case was the location of the property, boat or vessel, and we had certain asterisks, two conditions. Those two conditions, same conditions, would apply to this situation of organizing an event where the recipient is non-registered. We've seen the place of supply is the location of the event. In case the event was held outside India, then the place of supply is the location of the recipient. In case it is held in more than one state, then you search for the criteria of proportioning the value of services in each state as per the contract, or wait for the government to give you a basis for splitting these if there's nothing of this sort in the contract. These asterisks, these rules are exactly similar to those that we discussed for immovable property. So it's easy for you to remember, both are the same. So with that, we've completed our discussion on event. In case of organizing event, the hybrid rule is followed. A registered taxable person, place of supply is his location. Non-registered, place of supply where event held with asterisks. In case of admission to an event, then the place where the event is held, that is the place of supply. Let's move on to our third category, which is related to transportation. Now we can divide the services included within this category in the exception list to three: transport of goods, transport of passengers, and services on board a conveyance. So what are the rules relating to place of supply? The hybrid rule would be applied in the first two situations, transport of goods as well as passengers, while for the third one, services on board a conveyance, the place of supply is the place of first scheduled departure. Let's check these. The first situation, transport of goods, hybrid rule. In case of registered recipient, the place of supply As always, this is the general rule: location of recipient. In case of non-registered recipient, place of supply would be the location where the goods are handed over for transport. Suppose you're in Bangalore and you want to transport your goods to, say, Maharashtra, Mumbai. You go to a goods transport agency and hand over the goods. The goods transport agency is in Bangalore and you've handed over the goods to the agency for transportation in Bangalore, and that's why Bangalore will be the place of supply in case you're a non-registered recipient. Simple. That is the hybrid rule for transport of goods. What's the hybrid rule for transport of passengers? Well, around the same line. In case of registered recipient, place of the recipient, location of recipient would be the place of supply. In case of non-registered recipient, the place of supply would be the location where the recipient embarks on the conveyance. You handed over the goods in the first case in Bangalore for goods to be delivered. Now for passengers to be transported, the place where passenger gets onto the conveyance. Simple. It's around the same line, just twist the goods to the passenger. Simple, isn't it? That gives us the third category. Services on board a conveyance. The place of supply is the first scheduled departure. Let's understand this with an example. A plane takes off from Karnataka and this airline offers sale of certain services to the customers on board. While the plane is in air over Mumbai, these services are sold and the plane lands in Delhi, which is the final destination of the journey. The rule is that the first scheduled departure place, that's the place of supply. So, Karnataka would be the place of supply because that's where the plane first takes off. Suppose this plane has halts in between. It actually halts in Maharashtra, lands there, waits for 1 hour or so, and then takes on its journey in Delhi. Even then, if the supply is made en route between Maharashtra and Delhi, even then the place of supply would be Karnataka because it's the place of first scheduled departure, whether the service is given anywhere throughout the journey. That's all a simple rule. So those were the rules relating to transport of goods. Hybrid rule in the first two cases. For non-registered recipient, it would be the starting point of goods being handed over or passenger embarking the conveyance. And the last one we've seen in detail. Let's now move on to the fourth category, restaurant, catering, fitness, health. Now this category actually has listed out certain types of special services: restaurant and catering services, personal grooming services, fitness, beauty treatment, health services including cosmetic and plastic surgery. Do you recall where we've checked this list out earlier? You're right, while we discussed the negative list for input tax credit. The same list. So, the place of supply for these specific list of categories would be the location where the services are actually performed. So, in a restaurant, the service would be given inside a restaurant and that would be the place of service. Personal grooming. What if you call the beautician home? Then your home will be the location where the services are actually performed and that's the place of supply. That's just one rule for these services where it's performed. Coming to the fifth category of training or appraisal. These include services in relation to training or performance appraisal. In this case as well, the hybrid rule will be applied. In case the recipient is a registered taxable person, then the place of supply, as always, would be the location of the recipient. In case he is not a registered taxable person, then the place of supply would be the location where the services are actually performed. Simple rule. Coming to our last category of telecommunication services. Now these services can be divided into three. First, fixed telecommunication line, lease circuits, internet lease circuits, cable or dish antenna. Basically, all services which are related or use something that's fixed. the antenna is fixed on top of your terrace. Fixed telecom lines, those are something like your landline, they are fixed. The second and third category include mobile connections, not fixed. Second category is postpaid category, mobile connection for telecom and internet services which are postpaid. The third is prepaid for mobile connections for telecom, internet service and DTH. DTH is not included in the postpaid second category, but it is in the third category, which is for prepaid services. In this case, for first fixed line, the place of supply would be the place where the line is installed. Recall, it's somewhat in line with the immovable property discussion that we had, where it is installed, the place of immovable property. Also, the asterisks related to immovable property apply here. If the line installed is in 2 states, then find the proportion in the contract and divide the value accordingly, or you wait for the rules to be prescribed for such division if your contract is silent. In the second situation, mobile connections, telecom and internet service postpaid connections, then the place of supply is nothing but the billing address of the recipient on record of the supplier. For a postpaid connection, you get a bill, an invoice from the supplier, and the supplier will definitely have your billing address. So the place of supply would be that address. In the third situation, prepaid. Now here, the prepaid services can be availed through a selling agent. You go to a shop, buy the SIM card, so he's a selling agent, or a voucher. You get a recharge voucher. Whatever the case may be, the place of supply would be the address of the selling agent or the place where the payment is received and the voucher is sold. Those are the places of supply in all 3 situations. In prepaid, of course, you cannot track down the receiver, and therefore the supplier, the place of supplier would become the place of service. Selling agent, payment received, voucher sold. And with that, we've completed checking out the situations, the exceptions to the general principle of place of supply of services in case of domestic category. We've seen the 6 broad categories. We've checked out many services under these. You should also know that there are 3 more services that we've not covered in detail. These are related to banking and financial services, insurance services, and advertisement services for government. They are very specific. Let's just discuss them in very, very brief. For banking and financial services, the location of the recipient on record of the supplier. So you get a service from the bank will have your address. The address on record of the bank would be the place of supply. In the second situation, for insurance services, hybrid rule will apply. If you are registered, location of recipient, non-registered, then the location of recipient on record of supplier. Any insurance service would definitely have the address of the receiver, otherwise the service won't work. The third is the advertisement services provided to state government, central government, statutory authority, local authority, anyone meant for identifiable states. So it's for separate states, and the location would be taken in each such state, and the value would be proportionate to the contract, proportionate to the amount attributable to services provided by way of dissemination in the respective states, as is determined by the terms in the contract. It's very specific to only few service providers, and therefore we are not going into detail here. With that, we've completed our discussion on the general rule of place of supply as well as exceptions for the general rule in case of domestic supply of services. Next, we'll check out the situation where either the location of the supplier or the recipient is outside India, which is nothing but international supply of services. That's what we are going to check out in the next video.